Well, critics say the new definition will be so broad that not only will it be divisive, but it could actually end up being legally challenged.
This is interesting. For independent reviewer of terrorism legislation. This is a mouthful. Lord Alex Carlile KC joins us. Lord Carlile, thank you very, very much. You helped write the last definition of extremism. In basic terms, because you're far more intelligent than I, giving a definition, it seems, doesn't really, for people responding this morning, give as much detail and meat on the bone as people are after. Can you help us a little bit with this?
Yes, I disagree with much that's been said this morning. I think the definition that's been provided is intelligent, it's usable, it sets a high bar, it makes a reasonable balance between rights and duties. It does not dilute the right to speak, free speech. You just read out 3/4 of the definition. It means what it said. It's written in clear language, in my view. The important point for me is how can this definition, when it's used, be questioned and challenged? If an organization, recently, for example, Hizb ut-Tahrir, is proscribed, is banned, then there is a right of challenge to that banning, and it's done through a particular court or commission. What we need to be sure is that this definition will not be applied arbitrarily, that there will be the right of challenge, and in particular, that judicial review, the judicial review of administrative action, will be available in the normal way to challenge decisions made by ministers. But as a working definition, this is good, and it does not in any way cramp the right of legitimate free speech. It simply makes it clear that extremism includes things that will, for example, destroy the fundamental rights and freedom of others, or overturn or replace our system of liberal parliamentary democracy, which simply means our parliamentary system that we have.
Lord Alex, you said there that this new definition is very clear and doesn't infringe on a human being's right to free speech in the UK. You must have heard the comments of Frank Hester, Tory party donor, that have come to light in the past few days, the comments that he made about Diane Abbott, and another reportedly, made, saying that he wished for her to be shot, and also linking his hatred of her to all black women. Now, according to these very clear, as you said, definition of extremism, would his comments fall under that definition of extremism?
No, almost certainly not, because the definition is clear in that people are allowed to say unacceptable things. And what happens to people who say unacceptable things is that they get the consequences that have fallen upon Frank Hester, which is a great deal of bile and justifiable dislike of the outrageous comments he made about Diane Abbott.
But can you understand why there is some confusion, Lord Alex? Because it does say here, extremism is the promotion of an ideology based on violence, hatred or intolerance. He was talking about violence, shooting somebody. Hatred, he said that because of his feelings towards Diane Abbott, he would hate, or it might lead him to hate, all black women, and certainly intolerance. So how is that not encapsulated by this very definition?
Read on as you did earlier, because it says that aims to, and then there is the rest of it.
Fundamental rights or freedoms of others, but saying that you would want to shoot somebody is a removes their fundamental right to presumably live. Undermine, overturn or replaces the UK system of liberal parliamentary democracy and democratic rights. You can understand why there's some confusion.
What this definition provides is an opportunity for people who want to object to certain things, to demonstrate and so on, to sit down, to read it, and to bring their activities within that definition. Free speech has never been unlimited. Free speech is limited by the duties. We have the right to free speech, but we have the duty not to break the law. And in that balance, which was brilliantly described by a still living political philosopher, David Selborne, in the 1980s, this definition explains exactly what that political philosopher said when his views were accepted by, I think, all political parties in the 1980s as a kind of broad definition of human rights, that human rights are balanced by human duties. And anyone who wants to protest can read this definition It takes a few seconds and can then determine what to do, and their right to free speech will not be inhibited.
Taking the other side,
but there
Lord
has
Alex,
to be a right of challenge, as I've said.
Taking the other side, actually, listening to you both, does this go far enough? I mean, is it so wishy-washy? Hear me out. Are the existing laws strong enough? Because let's be perfectly honest, I'm going to bring it back to something. Every single Saturday we are seeing marches, and there are people on those marches who are marching peacefully. But it is absolutely without any shadow of a doubt that fanatics and extremists are hijacking these demonstrations of free speech, etc., and seemingly the people in this country, whatever a definition says, want something done about that. Are the existing laws or this new definition enough to get that problem dealt with for the British public? That would be my final question, sir.
Well, I'm going to do something that doesn't often happen in these programmes and answer with one word. Yes, it is enough. Because as you can see from reading that definition, those people who wish to demonstrate for the rights of Palestinians to have their own state will not be breaking this definition of extremism. But those who, for example, say that all Jews should be killed will be breaking this definition. And there are grades, there are grey areas between, and people will have to make their own minds up. The courts are very used to interpreting concepts like, for example, dishonesty, trust, belief. And this is another definition which, in my view, falls quite squarely within our democratic values, but there absolutely has to be a right of challenge. The government must not exclude the rights of judicial review. For example, if a minister decides to proscribe or effectively proscribe, ban an organisation.
And Lord Alex, just can you explain to me what this new guidance, this new definition of extremism that is intended, it's statutory, it's for the government to abide by and nobody else. What has that got to do with those protests?
Well, it's not for the government to abide by. The government, so of course, has to abide by it, but so does everybody else. And what this does is it sets out.
But this is just government guidance for the government. I don't read anywhere in their statement where
it's not. No, it's government. It's broader than that. I'm sorry. It's government guidance, for example, for the police. There are 43 territorial police forces up and down the country. There have been demonstrations recently in many of those police areas. This provides consistency for the police, for universities, and for other public and indeed for some large private bodies to determine what they should be allowing on their premises, how they should be laying down conditions for demonstrations.
I have to jump in, Lord
what
Alex.
those public bodies can do is hold up this definition.
Just one final question. Really appreciate your detail on this morning. Are we saying in all of those police forces and the universities that the definition of this definition, so how it's used by those police bodies, by those universities, is up to the individual? That's what you're saying, right? And that is why you're saying that maintains the fact that it's a liberal democracy and people can make their choices. Plus, there's the chance to, in effect, if you're banned, in effect, you can appeal that. That's what you're saying, right?
This is guidance that allows those events to happen. Yes, I agree with what you just said.
Lord Alex Carlile KC, really good to have you on. Thank you very much indeed.